Me now is a very special guest. I'm joined by Kirill Dmitriev. He's the person who's heading the Russian Development Foundation, which, remember, is driving this entire exercise. The CEO there. Appreciate, sir, you're joining us on the news today. The big question, the agreements that you've gone ahead and signed with Dr. Reddy's has led to much speculation. What are we to understand? Is it a recognition that India is probably the frontier for you for the production and distribution of vaccines? That you believe that once the vaccine is ready, India becomes one of your first big markets where Russia intends to bring the Sputnik V vaccine?
Yes, definitely. So, India and Russia have been partners for a very long time, and we're absolutely confident that India will play one of the main roles in the world in fight against COVID, because also India has one of the best vaccine production capabilities in the world. And I think as part of the Make in India program by Prime Minister Modi and other efforts by your government and your private sector, you created a very powerful pharmaceutical industry that produces vaccines. So for us, it's very important that India is not only a partner who can use Russian vaccine, but also India is a partner who can produce Russian vaccine for India and for other countries as well.
But how do you respond, Mr. Dmitriev, to the criticism of Sputnik V? Scientists across the world claiming they are concerned about the safety of the vaccine. They are claiming that there could be after effects. And in view of the manner in which the Russian government approved it, they were placed for use before completion of human trials. How do you respond to critics who are saying Russia is rushing ahead and jumping the gun without meeting safety standards on this vaccine?
Well, I think it's a clear example of negative competitive propaganda by some of the Western pharma companies whose vaccines are much worse, because ours is based on human adenovirus, which is a great safety track record, and theirs is based on novel approaches that have not been tested before. So after Russia approved its vaccine before phase 3, so did China, so did UAE, and we now hear that the US and Britain are on the way to approve their vaccines before phase 3 is completed. But the big difference is that our vaccine is based on human adenovirus that has been checked and tested for decades and has really great safety record, and Western vaccines have not been tested for a long time. Those are new approaches, no long-term consequences have been studied. So that's why some of the competitors are trying to attack Russian vaccine, just understanding that our vaccine is better, much safer, and all of the necessary procedures have been followed, including the ongoing post-registration clinical trials of 40,000 people in Russia, and clinical trials will start in India, UAE, and Saudi Arabia this month.
No, you are saying to me, Mr. Dmitriev, that clinical trials will begin this month in India, presumably with your partners, Dr. Reddy's laboratory. I want to understand what kind of time frame are you looking at? Are you telling me today that you could be in a position to start mass production and distribution possibly by within the next 6 to 9 months?
Yeah, so basically we have focused on being able to deliver vaccine to key markets already in November.
In November?
And basically we are working with regulators in different countries because obviously COVID is a major challenge for the whole world. So we believe in November, subject to regulatory approval, we can actually have vaccines in India and in other key markets. And that is a timeline that we are working on. By the end of October, we'll have results on many of the people in the post-registration studies we have, on more than 30,000 people. And once again, the key is that our vaccine is very safe and has a great safety profile, as has been demonstrated in first 2 phases of clinical trials.
1 minute, Mr. Dmitriev, you are telling me, hold on to that thought, you're going to excite and at the same time shock viewers and possibly the medical community also. Are you telling me seriously that the Russian vaccine will be available for distribution in India by November? Is that a timeline, sir, you're looking at? Because nobody, not even the WHO, no medical experts, Lancet, no one has suggested such a short timeline. Is Russia trying to fast forward the vaccine by dropping safety checks to simply push ahead? Are you serious? November, you will have a vaccine, COVID vaccine in place in markets?
Well, as I told you again, our vaccine has been tested for decades. It's based on human adenovirus platform that has really been tested over decades. And as an example is the US Army is using adenovirus vaccines from 1971. And that is the basis for us to actually vaccinate people right now, to have post-clinical trials in Russia. And we will have clinical trials in India, so Indian regulator will be able to see all of the data. But yes, we believe November deadline is realistic. We see that some other countries may try to also have emergency approval of their vaccines. But again, it's very clear, and people of India need to understand, there is a difference in human adenovirus that has been tested for decades, and new approaches of monkey adenovirus, mRNA, that have not been tested for a long time ever. So AstraZeneca, for example, by itself says that in 4 years, they don't know what the consequences of their vaccine is. It's a direct statement by them. And that is, for example, why we are not asking as Russia for indemnification from risks for our vaccine. And all of the Western manufacturers are asking for full indemnification from risks. If something goes wrong, they don't want to be responsible. They want countries who are buying the vaccine to be responsible. So we are working jointly with WHO, with other international organizations, with Gavi and CEPI, to have definitely all of the information about Russian vaccine. And we're absolutely confident that it will receive emergency approval in a number of markets around the world already in November. And that's important because it allows us to save lives sooner and allows us to be effective sooner.
I'm going to ask you this again, because remember, sir, I'm holding you to this. You are telling me that by November, certainly by the end of the year, along with Dr. Reddy's, you are going to deliver the COVID vaccine into markets. And as per the statement that you and Dr. Reddy has made, you all are going to give 10 crore doses. Are you telling me that you can scale up the vaccine immediately after November across markets like India? You're in a position to do that and say that today?
Yes, so that's for sure our expectation. Even in November, it's possible, subject to regulatory approval. And just so that you know, people are being vaccinated in Russia right now. And it's not only Minister of Defense who got vaccinated, not only Minister of Moscow, not only Minister of Industry, but ordinary healthcare workers are being vaccinated right now. And the same thing is happening in UAE, who also approved emergency approval of a Chinese vaccine, and its health workers are being vaccinated right now. So we see that other countries are following Russian approach of emergency authorization of vaccines that have had great safety record before. So yes, it's realistic that we will deliver vaccine in November, December to India, and we will work with Indian regulator very closely to ensure this timeline. I think it's very important. Not only this, we expect that vaccine produced in India can also be delivered to other markets. So we expect vaccine already in November, December, being produced in India, as part of Make in India program, being available to other countries as well.
You are saying, though, Mr. Dmitriev, that your clinical trials are on in Russia, that you are hoping to get regulatory approvals to have the trials sometime this month also in India. But there have been some reports about adverse reactions, about after effects. Can you give us confidence, any confidence, that so far all the trials that you have conducted have been free of any after effects, that people who have been tested have been found to be safe and have developed the necessary antibodies? Can you give any confidence here, sir?
Of course. During the phase 2, it was clear that there were no side effects. And the reason is that we use a very simple light flu virus that humans have lived with for hundreds of thousands of years. So it's a very safe delivery mechanism of the spike of coronavirus, and it's not possible to get sick with coronavirus from the vaccine because only spike is delivered, not the whole gene of the virus. So you for sure cannot get coronavirus from the vaccine, and our research showed in clinical trials there are no significant side effects at all. So yes, of course, vaccine is safe, and Russia would not have approved it for use in Russia unless it was absolutely sure that the vaccine is safe. And our message is very clear. It can be delivered to India in November. It's much cheaper than other vaccines out there by Western companies because nobody tested mRNA and monkey adenovirus vaccine for long-term effects such as fertility and cancer. And our vaccine has been tested for decades. This human adenovirus approach has been tested for decades and shown not to have any long-term negative effects on humans.
You know, the reason I'm saying this is I want to understand this is not presumably, Mr. Dmitriev, another Cold War era battle that we are fighting in the 21st century for market share this time. You're telling me and telling our viewers that the Russian vaccine will be available in the market by November. The US President Donald Trump is hoping to make some breakthrough announcement before the November presidential elections. I hope all of this is based on science and research. You're not just crunching time frame in any form that could compromise people's safety.
Well, again, we are just based on facts. So we have a vaccine that was used for Ebola 6 years ago, and we slightly modified it for this coronavirus vaccine. It went through all of the necessary procedures in Russia, it's registered in Russia, and people are being vaccinated right now with it. We would not have jeopardized our population if there was any risk to it. So we follow very strict procedures, just as India is following very strict procedures. And our vaccine was attacked even before we registered it. Some Western players said, oh, maybe it was stolen. But we showed it's not stolen, it's much better vaccine than what they have. So there is a saying, you know, caravan is going forward, but dogs are barking. So dogs are barking, but caravan is going forward because the mission of Russia is to save people, to save Russian people, to save Indian people, to save people in other countries. And we are not going to be derailed by fake news, by fake attacks on our vaccine, which has much better safety profile, much better safety record than other vaccines, and it's just a fact. So just we ask this question to Western vaccines, please show us any long-term study of safety of monkey adenovirus and mRNA vaccines. And there are none. There are zero. Why? Because those are new vaccines. And we just all care about saving people with the safest possible vaccine platform out there, which is Sputnik V.
You know, in the Lancet study, the medical journey study, Mr. Dmitriev had said that Sputnik V was able to trigger off both antibody as well as T-cell immune response in recipients. But a number of researchers have questioned this entire study. They're saying the sample size was too small. They're looking at the manner in which enough data is not being provided. How do you respond that this is all being conducted in secrecy and there is a suggestion that this is being motivated by competitive pressures?
Yes, definitely, because, for example, AstraZeneca says they have 1,076 people in their clinical trial, but only 10 people in their clinical trial received 2 shots of vaccine. And in Russia, it was much longer. The question from some scientists you are saying is led by scientist who has a clear conflict of interest. He actually has a private company that does data analysis, and he is trying to promote his company by accusations like this. But Russian scientists submitted all of the information to Lancet. We have all of the samples for all of the people still that Russia has. And of course, data is real, because if they wanted to make up data, that's first of all not possible given Russian procedures, and then they would make beautiful data that looks beautiful. But they just submitted data as it is, so those accusations are completely without merit, are done by people with conflict of interests, are propagated by media who wants to attack Russian vaccine, and all of the answers have been provided to the Lancet magazine. So all those things are attempts to try to paint Russian vaccine in dark colors, and frankly are very unethical, because it prevents some people from getting safe vaccine sooner rather than later. And frankly, those constant attacks cost people lives. But we go forward, we signed agreement with Mexico, we signed agreement with Brazil, we signed agreement with India, we'll sign many agreements next week. And we are doing this to save people, to protect them with a very good vaccine that they need.
Let me be honest, others have also signed agreements, Oxford, AstraZeneca, Serum Institute, for example, Bharat Biotech. I want to understand, though, in conclusion, how much of this, Mr. Dmitriev, is being driven by the Russian government, by President Vladimir Putin? Is this vaccine nationalism that we are seeing, as some are calling it, that this is about Mr. Putin trying to establish Russia's dominance through vaccines, almost as a counter to what the West is showing? Is it driven by government pressure or by private enterprise and scientific research?
Well, you see that most of our agreements are with private companies, and private companies, including Dr. Reddy, would not be signing these agreements unless they understood that the science is very solid. So definitely it's a combination of private enterprises. And once again, we have a better vaccine than the West, it's a fact, because it has been studied for a longer period of time. And rather than trying to do something new, we focused on a safe approach, have been tested for decades. So what drives this is a desire to protect our people, the desire to protect people in other countries, and this is what drives it. And we face some political attacks and fake media, fake questions, but we move forward with a desire to protect people. It has nothing to do with politics, has to do with saving people in Russia and saving people around the world.
So this is not vaccine nationalism Putin style.
Well, see, you come up with phrases that don't even exist. There is no vaccine nationalism by President Putin. He, just as other presidents, want to protect their people and to protect other people. So once again, you're putting terms that don't exist. What exists is a human adenovirus vaccine that is safe.
Let me ask you therefore in conclusion, November, December, I'm holding you to it. This news is going to create big waves. November, December, we could see you're saying Russia, India, bhai, and the vaccine will be available. Am I correct? I'm holding you to it now.
Exactly. Just as we had great partnership before in many areas, we believe vaccine is a core partnership, and India will really be a great hub for producing vaccines in the world, not only the Russian vaccine, but also others. And India will be one of the key saviors of the world through its vaccine production capabilities.
Okay, let me leave it there. Mr. Dmitriev, you really have, in a sense, sent the cat among the pigeons at a time when there's a sense that the vaccine won't come till at least middle of next year. You're claiming November, December. Thanks very much for joining me there from Moscow.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.